Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Foxy and this is Foxy Books and Planning. Today's video is the reading wrap-up for January 2020. This is where I look at all the books I read this month, all the books that I'm currently working on, and what I'm looking at picking up next. Hopefully 2020 will be a really good year for my reading. I've already read a lot of interesting books. I've got a lot of books on the docket, and I'm hoping to make some good progress on my TBR list. So with that, let's get into it with the things I finished this month. So the first thing that I finished this month is the book American Royals by Catherine McGee. I did this as an audiobook from my library. It came out late last year, and it is the first book in a new young adult alternate history romance series following, and the general premise is that George Washington became the king of the United States after the Revolution, and we are following his many great-great-greats, grandchildren, as they what's the words I'm looking for? Navigate the modern world as royals, very similar to the British novels that we see, like My Oxford Year, what was the other one? The Royal We, those kinds of things, red, white, and royal. And we're following Beatrice, who is the heir apparent, and her twin siblings, Samantha and Jackson. And I gave this 2 stars, and the main reasons I gave this 2 stars is when you look at the summary of this book, it talks about Beatrice struggling with ascending to the throne after her father's death. And after reading it, that one feels like a lie, because spoilers, that event is is like the last 10 pages of the novel, is her father dying and Beatrice becoming queen. And not a lot happened in the book. We're following 4 different viewpoints. So we're following Beatrice herself, Samantha, Samantha's best friend, whose name escapes me, and Jackson's former girlfriend, Daphne, as they all kind of navigate different parts of their lives. Beatrice is in love with her guard. Samantha is struggling with her place in the world as the spare, not really having a focus for her life. And Jackson is in love with her best friend, so they're trying to juggle that relationship. And Daphne is trying to get back into the royal family's lives to make her family proud. It's a lot of relationship stuff. It's a lot of romance. Some of the romance is good, but the plot drags. I feel like some of the viewpoints don't really add anything. The Daphne viewpoint really doesn't add anything. Nina. Okay, Nina is Sam's friend and Jackson's girlfriend for this for the book. And I feel like if we had focused more on just one character, if we had focused on maybe just Beatrice and Samantha, and had the pivotal king's death happen in the middle of the story, it would have been a more intriguing read for me, because I feel like where the story really gets started is the last 10 pages. And it's one of those books where, I know I've said this before and I'll say it again, if you're wanting to write a young adult series, each book needs to stand alone. The first book of a series should not be, let me introduce you to everything, and have the action that starts the series at the end of the first book. Something needs to happen in the middle of the first book to really start the story and get the story moving. It really drives me crazy with young adult novels where you can tell that they're dragging out their concept so they can get multiple books out of it. That being said, I am definitely not continuing on with this series. I feel like this wasted a really cool concept that could have been really well done, especially in the wake of Meghan Markle marrying Prince Harry and all of the drama of Megxit. I believe is what it's now called. This could have been a really interesting series and a really interesting concept that's just let down by execution. The next book that I finished this month is My Sister the Serial Killer by Onidkan Braywarty. My apologies if I butchered that. I got this as an audiobook from my library and I gave it 3 stars. So this one, it was one of the books that was nominated for the Goodreads awards for the mystery and thriller category this year, or last year in 2019. And that's part of the reason I picked it up. And it's a really interesting concept because the basic concept is you're following a woman whose sister is systematically killing off her boyfriends. And she always has a reason why the boyfriends end up dead. And it's always after some sort of fight or some sort of abuse. And she always calls her older sister in to clean up the aftermath. And the whole story takes place in Lagos, Nigeria. So it's a really, really interesting look at Nigerian culture. And I found the interplay between the siblings really, really interesting, especially the dynamic of the 2 siblings, and then seeing the relationship between the siblings and the mother. What lost me on this book was this book to me really wasn't a thriller. It was much more of a literary fiction dissection of family that happened to have a murder element in it. And that goes with like the whole book. The main character is grappling with what to do about her sister because she realizes that her sister's behavior is not normal and that her sister is likely to keep doing this and get away with it because she's beautiful, she's well liked, and she really struggles with it throughout the book about what do I do? Well, I'm an accessory. Well, I can't turn in my sister. I'm the older sister. I have to protect people. But with that part, I feel like it really wasn't a mystery thriller. And I feel like if the author had intended to move in the mystery thriller direction, she really should have leaned more into that serial killer and investigative angle more than she actually did. But nonetheless, it was an enjoyable read. I just feel like it could have used some tweaks to make it a great book. The next book I finished was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which I gave 5 stars. I got this as an audiobook from my library. This is also the first book in a new series, and I believe it actually won the Goodreads Choice Award for Fantasy this year, or at least was nominated for it. I really, really, really loved this book. I loved the magic system. I loved the world building because the majority of the book is centered in Yale University. And most of the places are real. Most of the characters you could see as college students or people related to the university. The mysteries are great. There's actually multiple mysteries and they feed into one another. The tension, the suspense, the fantasy elements, everything is really, really great. I do agree, and for the last 5 seconds, one of the things I was actually pleasantly surprised by this book with how much I loved it, because when I started reading it, I looked at the Goodreads reviews of it, and most people whose reviews I really take stock of when they say they either really like or really hate something, none of them really liked this book. They complained that it was slow. They complained that the main character is unlikable, that the magic system just doesn't make sense, and they just didn't really enjoy it. And I was kind of floored because I'm like, I really enjoy this, and people whose opinions I really expect don't. Why is that? And I think part of it goes to the main character. She is an anti-hero. She's not super likable. She is annoying at the beginning. And then you have her counterpart, Darlington, his chapters are amazing, especially when you get his point of view. Of course, his chapters are from his point of view, but when you get those flashbacks from his point of view that kind of explain how we got where we are in the main timeline that she is narrating, it's really interesting. That coupled with the mystery of what happened to him, which is one of the central mysteries, And I can understand how some of the elements that are used to explain the main character's backstory and how she got there aren't really well done, or sometimes they're very jarring compared to the rest of the book. I can understand those complaints. But the things with the magic system, it's like the magic system is based in the real world, where we're looking at unstable magic that's very limited in scope, but can be incredibly powerful. And when I'm going to try and not go into too many spoilery type things, but the way that Leigh Bardugo sets this book up for sequels, and the way that she actually manages to write a coherent story in one book, that if you never read another book, it would be a pretty much complete story, with just a couple of unanswered questions at the end, is brilliant. And this is what I wish I could find more of in young adult. And yeah, I know it's an adult book, and I know they're different worlds, but just the storytelling aspect is something I really appreciated, and I'm really looking forward to going back and reading Leigh Bardugo's other novels, because I haven't had a chance to read any of her other work. This is my first one of hers, and I'm also really looking forward to the sequel to this. The next one I finished this month is Dear Girls by Ali Wong. I got this as an audiobook from my library, and I gave it 4 stars. This was not quite what I was expecting. It's really Ali Wong talking to her children in kind of a humorous memoir-y type way. If you really like Baby Cobra and Hard Knock Wife, you'll really enjoy this book. I found that it was a little too graphic and explicit sometimes, but that is her style, and I can deal with it in small doses. But with this being a full book, it just really didn't resonate with me. I enjoyed the book. It was funny. But I wish that there had been more of her humorous things and less of the gross bodily things in there. And I did really appreciate the epilogue is written by her husband and read by her husband. And the book is read by the author, which is always great when you're doing humorous memoirs, because then you get their kind of, especially comedians, you get their timing and their inflections and things, which really brings the stories to life. But that was Dear Girls. Next was Five Dark Fates by Kendara Blake. I finally finished it. Yes, I did. This is the Three Dark Crowns book 4. It's the final book in this series. I did this as an ebook from my library, and I gave it 3 stars. Why did I give a book that I was so excited to finish and have come out 3 stars? Because it was a lackluster ending and it dragged. The ending didn't make a whole lot of sense. The way everything was wrapped up didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I really didn't appreciate the ending. I felt like it let a lot of things down. But I finished it. I can cross it off my list and move on. I would say if you do appreciate this series, definitely check out Anna Dressed in Blood, which is another one of her series. And there's another series that she writes as well that's very similar to this in style and writing. I'll write myself a sarcastic subtitle about what the book is called, but it's about the Greek gods are losing their powers and they're trying to figure out how to not die. But her other books are much better. This is not the strongest Kendara Blake book I've ever read. It's definitely not the way I wanted this series to end, but it is what it is, and I finished it, and I can move on with my life now. The last book I finished this month is NPCs by Drew Hayes, which is the first book in the Spell, Swords, and Stealth series. There are 5 books in the series total. This is an audiobook that I own, and I gave it 4 stars. The general idea of this book is you have a group of guys who are playing a Dungeons & Dragons-like tabletop game, and they kill themselves by eating some poisonous mushrooms, and the NPCs in the world take over those roles to save their village and kind of go off on an adventure. And it is really, really, really great. Why did I give it 4 stars? I felt like some of the characters could have been a little more developed and the plot could have been a little more straightforward. There was lots of kind of twisty-turny, why did we spend 3 hours here and not 3 hours here? But hey, that is what it is. I am looking forward to reading book 2. I do have book 2 as an audiobook. I just haven't started it yet. All right, so now on to currently readings. So the first book in the currently readings is A Spell for Chameleon by Piers Anthony, which is the first Xanath novel. I am currently on page 203 of 300 and something. This, I've read 27% of the book since the last check-in at the beginning of the month when I did the December wrap-up. It's really weird. It's kind of hard to follow. I'm hoping I'll find it, the last 100 pages will make it a little bit better, but I'm not quite sure if I'll continue on with the series after this one. The next book is The Pioneers, the heroic story of the settlers who brought the American ideal west by David Macaulay. This was up for the Goodreads Award for Best History Biography. It was nominated, it did not win. I'm currently at 56% from the library audiobook. I'm hoping to have that wrapped up this week. I've got a bunch of other audiobooks from my library, so I'm trying to get through them as quickly as possible. Next is my newest addition to my currently reading, which is The Guinevere Deception by Kristen White. This is a young adult novel. I'm about 34% of the way through, so let's see if I can... Yeah, sorry if that's a little focused. I started reading this yesterday, so I've been reading this for about 24 hours, and I'm a third of the way through. The general idea is that it's set in Arthurian legend. Sorry for the wiggle there. And Guinevere is actually Merlin's student who comes to Camelot to marry King Arthur as a guise to help protect him because his Camelot has outlawed magic and there is some kind of threat coming and Merlin can't come back because Merlin's been banished, so he sends his prize people to protect the once and future king. I really love Guinevere. I'm not super far in, so I don't know all of the stuff about who she is and what she is and why she is and what her motivations are. I've just gotten into the initial mystery about what's going on and why Camelot is in danger, but I really like the magic system. I really like the characterization. I really like the main character. I like the way that all of the Arthurian legend is weaved into this novel. And I'm really looking forward to finishing this. And this, I believe, is the first book in a trilogy. Hold on. Yes. This is the first book in the Camelot Rising trilogy. And I'm really looking forward to it. Also, the cover is beautiful. I cannot stop looking at this cover. It's so freaking beautiful. But yeah, I really enjoy this. I'll probably have this finished by the end of the week. Next, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Haley Rubenhold, library ebook. I've completed 16% since my last check-in. I'm currently on the library wait list for it. I didn't get it finished in time and it had to be returned, so I'm currently waiting for it to come back to me. Lord Fowl's Bane by Stephen R. Donaldson, which is the first book in the Thomas Covenant series. I'm currently 6% into the Kindle ebook. This one is really weird. It's about a guy with leprosy who's hit by a car and ends up in a magical world where he is the savior of that world. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's really, really dense and slow, but I'm going to try and power through it. The next one is In the Garden of the Beasts, Love, Terror, and an American Family in Hitler's Berlin by Eric Larson. I'm currently 23% into this audiobook. I need to finish The Pioneers before I can work on this one. But this is a library-held audiobook. In terms of my couple favorites, before I get to those, my other new addition to the list is first, Sandra Day O'Connor by Evan Thomas, which is a biography of Sandra Day O'Connor, who was the first female Supreme Court Justice. I'm currently 4% into that book, and I just got it back from the library a couple days ago, and it's an ebook. In terms of the books that are always on my list that I make no progress on, Heart of Europe by Peter Wilson, no progress since last month. Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, 1% progress since last month. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R. R. Martin, no progress since last month. So that brings us to the on decks, And I have one book on deck, which is Love Your Life, Not Theirs by Rachel Cruz, who is a Dave Ramsey personality. This will be once I finish A Spell for Chameleon and The Guinevere Deception. I'll read this as my physical book that I have. Basically, this is a self-help book about loving what you have and not what other people have. Because a lot of what Dave Ramsey and his crew preaches is that a lot of the money issues that we have these days are because we want to impress other people, and that we need to stop impressing other people and live for ourselves. And that's kind of what this book looks at. And I'm interested to read it and see what other kind of habits and thoughts and concepts I can glean from it. So that is it for today. So our grand totals, drumroll, come to, I'm currently reading 6. I've read 6 this month. I currently have 10 books in progress, and I have 1 book on deck for next month because I don't have any audiobooks on deck. I've got so many audiobooks. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to go to next. I'm probably going to try and finish some things before I get to my next one. So thank you so much for watching to the end. Please do remember to like and subscribe. Leave any comments down below about any of the books that I'm reading, if you like any of them. If you have different thoughts about the ones I did finish reading, if you agree or disagree with any of my takes, any books you think I should pick up and read, I'd love to hear from you. And with always, I will see you in my next video. Bye!